First up, selecting the correct island to build on. The best island for this type of map is the extra large grid island, so select this island and load into it. Once you are in, you can start making the actual fighting locations. I'm going to be using this wall and this floor from the indestructible gallery, and then these stairs from the reflective black gallery. I'm just going to make one fighting location as an example, but if I was you, I would make around 10 to 15 fighting locations. For my fighting location I'm going to build, I'm going to go 2 across in length, then place a wall, and on top of that wall a floor, then 2 across to the left side. This is just a pretty simple location, and you can easily make other fighting locations just like this. But if you're struggling for layouts or ideas for your fighting locations, I would go into the Peace Control map by Bullseye and look at their fighting locations. Next up, and very importantly, the island settings. Max players, if your map is a 1v1, set it to 2, but if your map is a 2v2, set it to 4, and so on. Teams, 2. Team size, again, this is up to you. If your map is a 1v1, set it to 1. If it's a 2v2, set it to 2, and so on. Environment damage, player built only. Building can destroy environment, no. Voice chat, either team or all, your choice. Time of day, 4 PM. Time limit, none. Max shields, 100 shields. Starting shields, 100%. 4-star and max players, on. Game start countdown, off. Infinite ammo, off. Infinite consumables, off. Infinite building materials, off. And now, how to make the instant respawn and also teleportation system.
All you will need is a down but not out device, and then place it anywhere on your map, and then go to all options and copy these settings. Down but not out enabled, yes. Allow revives, no. Shakedowns, off. Last man standing mode, yes. Selected class, all. Invert class selection, only selected. Allow carry, no. Then go to functions and put revive player when receiving from down but not out device on player downed. Then go to events and put on player down to send event to down but not out device revive player. To get all players back up to full health once one of them has been killed, go to devices and then get the health power up device. Place that down and then go to all options. Copy these settings. Stat to modify, both. Effect magnitude, 200. Show visual effect on player, no. Time to respawn, is 0. Ambient audio, off. Pickup audio, off. Apply to all players. Who can see this power up? None. Then go to functions and put pick up when receiving from down but not out device on player revived.
Next up, once you've done that, how to make the teleportation systems for both players to get teleported when they get killed. First, go to your player spawners, and in one of the spawners, or 2 if it's a 2v2, set it to team 1, and then the other one, set it to team 2. Now, go to your fighting locations and place a teleporter where you want a player to spawn, then copy these settings. Teleporter group, none. Teleporter target group, none. Selected team, team 1. Teleporter rift visible, no. Play visual effects, no. Play sound effects, no. Conserve momentum, no. Face player and teleporter direction, yes. You can see where the player will face by this little line coming out of the teleporter. Then, copy this teleporter if it's a 2v2, so there's 2 in team 1. Then, copy the teleporter to the other side of your fighting location, or where you want the opposition to spawn, and then place it down. Keep the same settings, but change the selected team to team 2. Once you've done this, place down mutator zone devices so the whole of your fighting location is covered in them. Doesn't matter if you have to place multiple down, but just make sure your whole fighting location is covered in mutator zone devices. But put these settings on in all of them. Enable on phase, none, this is very important, and enable VFX, none. Then scroll to functions and put enable when receiving from down but not out device on player downed. Now go to events and put on player entering zone, send event to a different set of teleporters, so 2 teleporters or 4 if it's 2v2, in a different fighting locations to teleport. Then copy this process into all of your other fighting locations. So always make the whole thing covered in mutator zone devices, then place a different set of teleporters in a different fighting location, and have it teleport to them when this mutator zone device is enabled. Also, shout out to Ajax is playing on Twitch for helping me figure this system out. Now, once your fighting locations and teleportation instant respawns out of the way, you can make an area for players to ready up before the game starts. But first, if this video has helped you so far, please like, subscribe, and comment for what tutorials you want next. So, place down a player counter and copy these settings. Compare player count equal to target player count, up to you. If it's a 1v1, set it to 2. If it's a 2v2, set it to 4. Then use zone on, zone shape, cylinder, zone visible during game, yes, zone width 0.55 and zone tiles 0.55. Then place down a mutator zone device and then copy these settings. Enable during phase, none. Zone width 0.5, zone depth 0.5, enable VFX disabled, zone shape, cylinder. Then move it into the player counter so they are together in the exact same spot. Once you have done this, go back into your player counter, then go to events and put on count succeeds, send event to mutator zone device, that's in the same spot as it, not any of the ones in your fighting locations, to enable. Then go out of the player counter and back into that mutator zone that's also there, and in events in that put on player entering zone, send event to a set of teleporters which are in any fighting location to teleport. How to make a voting system in Fortnite Creative. Since this is such a big system, I'm going to show all the settings for the devices first, then show all of their event binding settings. So first, place down a random number generator device outside of your map and copy these settings. Value limit 1, 1. Value limit 2, same number as the amount of loadouts you want for players to vote for. Winning value, 0. Roll time, instant. Pick each number once, yes. Reset on game start. Reset after use, on. Reset delay, instant. Award score, never. Zone direction, doesn't really matter, just make sure it's set to anything that isn't none. Length, same as your value limit 2, and play audio off. Next, place down a pulse trigger next to the random number generator just like this and copy these settings. Loop infinitely, on. Width 0.5, length 0.5, height 0.5, zone direction any that faces onto the random number generator, just like this. Now place down a trigger inside one of the random number generator zones and change these settings. Trigger by player, off. Trigger by vehicles, off. Trigger by sequences, off. Trigger VFX, off. Trigger SFX, off. Then copy this trigger so there is one trigger in each of the random number generator zones. Now the reason we've just made this is so that if the votes end up in a draw, a loadout still gets selected. So now for the rest of the devices. First, place down an item granter and drop a loadout that you want into it. Then go to all options and copy these two settings. Receiving players all, grant all items. After this, place down a score manager beside the item granter, but before you make any changes to the settings, rename it to score manager tally. This is going to make it less confusing later when we're linking all the devices with the event binding. Once you've done that, copy these settings. Score value, 0. Score award type, no. Score change when activated, 1. Minimum score, 0. Maximum score, 16. Visible in game, only number. Send event on scoring, 16. Play audio, off. Next, place a HUD message device along with these two devices and copy these settings. Message, whatever you want, mine is, the loadout wins. Placement, again, whatever you want, but mine is top center. Once you've done this, copy this process for all of your other loadouts, except for the random number generator, pulse trigger, and the other normal triggers. You don't need to do all of that again. Lastly, before I show you how to actually vote for everything, place down a timer device and rename it to timer device vote. Then go to all options and put duration to how long you want players to have to be able to vote. Timer name, whatever you want, but mine is vote. Start on game start, on. Can interact, no. Visible during game, all. Display time in, seconds only. Timer running text, whatever you want, but mine is vote. Then, once you've copied those settings, copy the same timer over, and then rename it to timer device calculating. Then, just change the duration to 10, timer name and the running text to calculating, start at game start to off. Now, how to make the actual voting part. First, go into your actual map where the players will be, and then place down a button and change these settings. Trigger sound, disabled. Interaction text, vote for whatever loadout. Interaction radius, 0.5. Then, once you've done that, place down a switch and change these settings. Sound, disabled. Allow interaction, no. Store state per player, yes. Check state at game start, disabled. Now, place down the last device, which is another score manager. Just like the other score managers, rename it, but this time, make sure it's called Score Manager Visible. Then, once you've done that, copy these settings. Score value, 0. Score award type, no. Score change when activated, 1. Minimum score, 0. Maximum score, 16. Visible in game, only number. Send event on scoring, 16. And play audio off. Once you've done this, copy this process for all your other loadouts just like you did before. Now, for the event bindings. Firstly, go back to your pulse trigger and go to functions. Then put start pulse when receiving from timer device vote on success. Then stop pulse when receiving from all of your score manager tallies on score output. Then you don't need to change anything else for your random number generator, but you do for all of the triggers. First, go to functions and put disable when receiving from the opposite numbers of score manager tallies. And what I mean is, because this is trigger 1, put disable when receiving from score manager tally 2 and 3 on score output. But when I do this in the second trigger, I would put disable when receiving from score manager tally 1 and 3 on score output. Then after that in events, put on triggered send event to the score manager tally, activate. Do this to the one that has the same number. For example, this is trigger 1, so I'm sending the event to score manager tally 1. Then do these same functions and event settings for the other triggers. Now that part's completed, go to your item granters and score manager tally devices and go into functions in the item granter and just put grant item when receiving from the score manager tally that has the same number on score output. So since this is item granter 3, put it to receive from score manager tally 3. After this, go to your HUD message device and in functions, just put show when receiving from the score manager tally that is the same number on score output. Then do the same process for the other item granters and other message devices. Next, go to your timers and in the vote one, go to functions and put disable when receiving from all of the score manager tallies on score output. Then go to your other timer device, which is your calculating one, and in functions put start when receiving from timer device vote on success. Now lastly, go over to your actual voting part in your map and first go to your button. In events, just put on interact send event to the switch that is the same number to check state. Next, go to your switch and in functions put turn on when receiving from every single switch including itself on check result off. Then scroll over to events and put on check result off send event to the score manager tally that is the same number to activate. Also the score manager visible that is the same number to activate. Then also all of the switches including itself to turn on. Now lastly, in your score manager visible functions put activate when receiving from the switch that is the same number on check result off. Then copy this process for all your other voting loadout selectors. If you are adding this voting system into your map, make sure that is in a separate box to your ready up place. So to make it teleport after the voting system is completed to your ready up place, place down a teleporter in the ready up place, but make sure it has no selected team but all the other settings from the other teleporters, and have it to teleport there when the calculating timer is on success. But if you don't want a voting system at all, place down a team settings and inventory device, then in settings change the team to 1 and then drop all of the mats, ammos, meds and weapons into it that you want the players to have, then copy it and in this new team settings and inventory device put that team to team 2. And that is how you make speed realistics in Fortnite Creative. If you want to see how to make a team selector for your 2v2s or 3v3 maps, press the video on screen now.